Ink is about as straightforward a game as can be. It's a platformer without any fat, stripped down in both its control scheme as well as its visuals, and all the better for it. In Ink you play as a small, paint-filled cube which seems about ready to burst with colour at any given point. You can move, jump, and slide down walls, and that's about it. This simplicity makes the varied selection of levels seem all the more impressive, as the developers never seem short on new riffs on the same basic ideas. What really separates this from other similar titles though, is the way in which Ink presents its levels to the player. At first you won't be able to see any of the challenges laid out in front of you, but with every jump, slide or death you'll be lighting up your surroundings with bright neon, bit by bit until you're able to overcome any number of bottomless pits, harsh spikes or hidden enemies. The difficulty curve here is fair, starting out with the most basic of platforming challenges before eventually making you feel lucky to survive the level at all. Bosses pop up occasionally too, typically serving as both a nice departure from the normal gameplay, as well as a welcome test of the player's mettle. Admittedly, the controls initially felt rather floaty, and more than a little awkward compared to other similar titles. I also found my impulse to spam jumps to be a tough one to overcome in situations where rapid reactions were a necessity. Eventually though, I definitely found myself becoming increasingly better equipped to judge precise jumps and the timing required to survive. I'll chalk it all up to being part of the learning curve, although understandably not everyone will be quite so forgiving. In the trickier levels, I found myself stopping every so often and double jumping in order to expose my surroundings, something that almost always felt like cheating. However, the game never really deterred me from doing so, or gave me much reason to go faster. That being said, I can see Ink coming to life in the time trial mode, where taking it slow isn't really an option if you want a half-decent run. One minor annoyance that caused repeated frustration throughout was the slight wait times that crop up between you being killed and the game actually allowing you to restart the level. This freezing up of the screen before the player cube erupts does appear to be a design decision rather than a hitting load screen, which honestly makes it all the stranger. Despite it only lasting a second or so, it was still happening often enough to become a larger issue, especially in some of the trickier levels where death is more frequent. What music there is here is often firmly planted in the background. Most of the tracks give off oddly calming and even occasionally melancholy vibes. Sound design is sparse but well executed, with the splatter of paint bouncing off surfaces being especially satisfying. Much like the gameplay, the visuals are basic, but they certainly get the job done to a more than sufficient degree. It's colourful and mostly distinct looking, and yet I still would have liked to have seen more personality from both the player cube and the enemies. I wasn't expecting Thomas Was Alone style characterisation, but a few more tailored animations, specific to the different cubes, wouldn't have gone amiss. Generally speaking, Ink is a solid little game that's currently selling for a fair price. If you're in the market for a hard, but not too hard platformer, that can relax one moment then infuriate the next, then you could do a whole lot worse than Ink. With a little more personality and perhaps an increased number of bosses, the game could have made for a much better time, but as is, I can see its appeal being mostly limited to the sorts of platformer fans who have already exhausted the A-grade titles, and are looking for something else to satiate their thirst until the next genuinely great genre entry. And for that purpose, Ink will do just fine.